The snow came down heavier than I expected. What was supposed to be a quick 2-hour drive into the mountains had turned into a white-knuckle crawl through sheets of swirling white. My windshield wipers fought hopelessly against the icy buildup, and every gust of wind rattled my little SUV as though it wanted to shove me right off the narrow road. I should have turned back hours ago. But I told myself I'd be fine. Just a weekend away, a chance to breathe, to escape the noise of my life back home. The cabin was supposed to be empty. My sister had offered it to me, promising it would be the perfect hideaway. Solitude, fresh mountain air, and nothing but the sound of snow crunching beneath my boots. But as the storm raged and the road grew invisible beneath the drifts, I realized I had no choice but to stop. I spotted the cabin's roofline just barely through the blur of snow and turned up the narrow drive, my tires spinning as I pushed the SUV as far as it would go before it gave up against the deep snow. When I stepped out, the wind hit me like knives. I tugged my hood tight and trudged up to the porch, boots sinking ankle-deep in fresh powder. My fingers were numb by the time I twisted the doorknob, praying it wasn't frozen shut. To my surprise, it opened easily. And that's when my heart stopped. The cabin was not empty. He was there, standing near the stone fireplace, in a flannel shirt and worn jeans, his dark hair mussed, a mug in his hand, looking just as shocked to see me as I was to see him. Ethan. The one man I swore I'd never see again. The one man I'd promised myself I would never touch again, because I knew exactly what he could do to me with just a glance, a smile, the sound of his voice. "What the hell are you doing here?" His voice was rough, deep, carrying that same edge of irritation I remembered too well. My throat went dry. My sister said the cabin was free. I didn't know you'd be here."
His jaw tightened.
He set his mug down on the mantel, eyes raking over me in that way that made my pulse stumble. I hated that my body reacted instantly. Heat, a rush of memory, the ache of what had once been. "The storm's bad," he muttered finally, dragging a hand through his hair. "You can't leave now." The words sank into me like both a curse and a temptation. I was stranded. With him. The storm screamed outside, rattling the windows as though mocking me. Ethan sighed, grabbing another mug from the counter and filling it with something steaming. He set it on the table without looking at me. "You'd better warm up." I hesitated, my fingers trembling as I pushed my head back and let my hair spill free, damp from the snow. Our eyes met for just a moment. His were still the same, stormy gray, filled with intensity that could strip me bare in an instant. And I realized then that this weekend wasn't going to be anything like I had planned. It was going to be dangerous. I sat down slowly, my fingers curling around the warm mug he'd given me. The rich scent of coffee filled my senses, mingling with the smoky pine of the fire that crackled in the hearth. The storm outside howled like a wild thing, rattling the shutters as though to remind me there was no way out. Ethan moved across the room with that same easy confidence I remembered, broad shoulders filling out his flannel, his every step sure, deliberate. He pulled another log from the woodpile and tossed it onto the flames, sparks dancing up the chimney. The heat grew, but it didn't settle the cold in my chest. "I didn't think you'd ever come back here," he said finally, his back still to me. "I didn't plan to," I admitted, my voice low, almost lost under the crackling fire. He turned then, leaning one hand against the stone mantel, watching me. That look, steady, unblinking, the kind that made my skin burn. It dragged me right back to a time I'd tried so hard to forget. "You still run when things get messy," he said. It wasn't an accusation, not entirely, but it stung all the same. "Maybe," I whispered, taking a sip of the coffee just to avoid his eyes. "Or maybe I just know better now." He laughed, but it was humorless, sharp. "Know better? Or are you just still scared?" My chest tightened. "I'm not scared of you." He arched a brow. "No." The way he said it was a challenge, and I hated that he was right. Because I was scared, terrified even. Not of him hurting me, but of what being near him always did to me. How easily he unraveled me, how quickly my resolve shattered when he was close enough to touch. The silence stretched, heavy and electric, broken only by the storm's roar. Finally, Ethan crossed the room and dropped into the chair opposite me. His leg brushed mine beneath the small table, just barely, but it was enough. My breath caught and I shifted, but he didn't move. His nearness was overwhelming, the heat of his body mingling with the fire, with the memories pressing hard against my ribs. "You still look at me the same way," he murmured, voice low, dangerous. I froze. "What way?" "Like you hate that you want me." His words pierced through me and I couldn't answer, couldn't even breathe. Because he was right. God help me, he was right. I tried to stand, to put distance between us, but as I rose, his hand shot out, curling around my wrist. Firm.
Warm.
The contact seared through me, sending a rush of heat spiraling down my spine. "Don't," I whispered, but my voice betrayed me. It trembled, weak, filled with something closer to need than resistance. His eyes locked onto mine, dark and burning. "You don't really want me to stop." The air between us was thick with everything we hadn't said, everything we'd buried under years of silence. The fire popped loudly, startling me, but neither of us looked away. His thumb brushed lightly over the inside of my wrist, and my whole body ached with the memory of his touch. I pulled back suddenly, retreating a step toward the fireplace, clutching my mug like a shield. My heart thundered so loud I was sure he could hear it. "This is a mistake," I managed to say, though my lips felt numb. "Maybe," he said, rising slowly from his chair. His gaze followed me, deliberate, devouring. "But some mistakes are worth making again." The storm outside screamed, the fire inside burned hotter, and I knew I was teetering on the edge of something I might never come back from. The hours crawled by, the storm outside only growing fiercer. Snow lashed against the windows, wind howled through the trees, and the cabin felt like the only warm pocket of the world left. I had curled myself up on the couch, a thick wool blanket around my shoulders. My boots were drying by the fire, leaving me barefoot, toes burrowed into the edge of the rug. I told myself to relax, to focus on the sound of the flames, but every nerve in my body was strung tight because he was there. Ethan moved easily through the space, tending to the fire, pouring himself another drink, his presence filling every corner of the room. I hated how aware I was of him. The scrape of his glass on the table, the sound of his low sighs, the quiet shift of his weight when he sat across from me. Finally, the silence cracked. "You're really going to sit there all night pretending you're not affected?" he asked, voice steady, but laced with something sharper. I glanced at him, blanket clutched tight. "What do you want me to say, Ethan? That being here with you feels like standing on the edge of a cliff? That I can't breathe without remembering everything?" His eyes darkened. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Maybe I just want you to admit you still feel it." I swallowed hard, shaking my head. "Even if I did, it doesn't matter. We promised." "Promises," he cut me off, voice low, almost a growl. "We both broke those long before tonight." The fire popped, sending sparks up the chimney. I felt my pulse hammer against my skin, my body betraying me with its trembling need. "I shouldn't have come," I whispered, though we both knew the storm had left me no choice. Ethan stood, slow and deliberate, and crossed the room until he was right in front of me. He crouched down, leveling his gaze with mine. I could see every line of his face, the faint stubble along his jaw, the way his lips pressed into a firm line as though he was holding himself back. His hand reached out, hesitated, then brushed the blanket from my shoulder. Just that, just his fingers grazing my skin, and my whole body erupted in heat. "Tell me you don't want this," he murmured. "Tell me and I'll stop." I opened my mouth, but the words wouldn't come. My throat was tight, my chest aching, my heart pounding so violently it felt like it would break free. I can't," I breathed. His eyes flared, a storm inside them every bit as fierce as the one outside. And then his hand slid further, cupping my cheek, tilting my face up to his. The firelight danced in his gaze, painting his features in gold and shadow. The space between us dissolved in an instant. His lips brushed mine, soft at first, tentative as though giving me one last chance to pull away. But I didn't. I couldn't. When I kissed him back, it was like falling through ice into fire. Every memory, every suppressed longing roared to life, crashing through me in waves. The blanket slipped from my shoulders as his arms wrapped around me, pulling me against him. The taste of him was intoxicating, warm, rough, familiar, and dangerous all at once. His mouth moved over mine with a hunger I'd tried to forget, and when his tongue brushed against mine, I gasped into him, clutching at his shirt as though he were the only solid thing left in the world. We broke apart for just a second, both of us breathing hard. His forehead pressed to mine, his voice rough. "You have no idea how long I've wanted this again." And then he kissed me harder, deeper, lifting me effortlessly from the couch and into his arms. The storm outside raged on, but inside, the fire between us had finally broken free. His mouth claimed mine with a force that left me dizzy, and before I knew it, he was laying me down on the couch, the firelight flickering over us in waves of orange and gold. His body hovered above mine, hot and solid, the weight of his need pressing against me through layers of fabric that suddenly felt unbearable. I gasped when his lips trailed down my throat, when his teeth grazed lightly against the sensitive curve of my neck. My hands tangled in his hair, pulling him closer, desperate to erase the years of restraint, of silence, of pretending I didn't crave him every time his name crossed my mind. "Ethan," my voice was breathless, trembling with need. He looked at me then, eyes blazing. "Tell me you want this." There was no hesitation this time. "I do. God, I do." That was all it took. His hands slid beneath my sweater, fingertips trailing up my bare skin, leaving a path of fire in their wake. He pulled the fabric over my head, tossing it aside, and his lips followed, kissing, tasting, devouring every inch of me as though he'd been starving for years. I arched beneath him, my body aching, begging for more, for everything. Clothes came off in hurried, desperate motions, jeans, shirts, every barrier stripped away until there was nothing left between us but skin and the unbearable heat that pulsed with every heartbeat. When he pressed into me, slowly, deeply, I cried out, the sound swallowed by his kiss. The world outside vanished, the storm, the cold, the rules we had sworn to live by. All that existed was the firelight, his body moving with mine, and the electric pulse of forbidden pleasure flooding through me. Every thrust was a release of years of tension, every touch a reminder of what we'd denied ourselves for too long. His hands gripped my hips, his forehead pressed to mine, our breaths mingling in gasps and moans. "I shouldn't," I whispered, even as my body betrayed me, arching, clinging, giving him everything. "You already did," he groaned against my ear, driving deeper, harder, until all I could do was cry out his name. The climax hit me like a wave crashing against rocks, violent, unstoppable, dragging me under. I shattered beneath him, my nails digging into his back, my body trembling as he followed me over the edge with a guttural groan, collapsing against me in the aftermath. For a long while, we lay tangled together on the couch, the fire crackling, our sweat-dampened skin cooling against the chill of the cabin air. The storm outside began to ease, the wind no longer screaming, the snowfall softening into silence. I stared at the ceiling, my chest still rising and falling hard, my mind spinning. What had we done? Ethan shifted, brushing a kiss over my shoulder. "No storm in the world could have kept me from wanting this," he murmured. My throat tightened. "But what happens when the snow melts? When the road's clear?" He looked at me, his hand cupping my cheek gently this time, tender where he'd been rough before. "That's up to us." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to imagine that this night wasn't just a reckless mistake, that it could mean something more. But deep inside, I knew the truth. This night would haunt me, change me, whether we dared to continue or walked away forever. The storm outside had broken. But inside me, one had just begun.
Kiss mark the end.